Modern means for observing peasant life in this region, which in the past was dedicated to the life hereafter. Gurna and Deir el Medina, two small villages where the inhabitants go about their lives paying not the slightest attention to the ever-present tombs uncovered by the archaeologists. It's here that most of Thebes' high dignitaries were entombed. Rekhmera, Mau, Ramoz, whose tomb is covered with exceptionally beautiful bas-relief sculptures. The queens of Egypt, they repose in a valley where to date some 80 tombs have been found. Many are in need of restoration. One of the best preserved is that of a prince, a son of Ramesses III. Toward the western extension of the mountains, the people of Thebes made tombs for their pharaohs. In the Valley of the Kings, the burial places are constructed according to the same plan. The pharaohs brought to their final resting places overwhelming riches for the next life. These celestial house movings brought generations of grave robbers. The only untouched tomb was that of Tutankhamun. Precious objects found here take up several rooms in the Cairo Museum. Near the Valley of the Kings, a circle of rocks protects the temple built by the architect Senmut in honor of Hatshepsut, the pharaoh queen who deposed her son. At Edfu is found the best preserved temple in all of Egypt. Dating from Greco-Roman times, it is dedicated to one of the greatest divinities of antiquity, the falcon god Horus, falcon of the sun, all-powerful and warlike, protector of pharaohs. At Edfu, the bas-reliefs are in such a perfect state of preservation that they serve as an inexhaustible source of information about ancient Egyptian thought and religious rite. Kamombo, the last vestiges of a temple dating from the reign of the Ptolemy dynasty 3 centuries before the Common Era. Kamombo is dedicated to 2 gods, Sobek the crocodile and Hathiosis the falcon, for here everything is doubled, an essential contrast to nearly all other Egyptian temples. In a felucca, you can come close to the 3 most interesting sights of the city. They dominate it. The mausoleum of the Aga Khan, housing the mortal remains of the supreme head of an Ismailian Muslim sect who died in 1957, leaving 4 million of the faithful to mourn. The monastery of St. Simeon, one of the oldest Christian convents in the world. And Kubat el-Hawa, the hill on whose slopes are encrusted the tombs of the Elephantine princes. Aswan owes a good part of its charm to the many feluccas that tack back and forth between the granite islands. Elephantine Island owes its name to the form of its rocks, polished with erosion over the centuries. It was the starting point for pharaohs on their expeditions to the south. The only vestige of that glorious epoch is the temple of Khnum, overseer of the floods. While the western edge of the desert is, even here, devoid of vegetation, on Kitchener Island, nature is exploding. In this superb garden, the island of flowers, such an infinite variety of scents intermingle, tropical, Asiatic, and African, that one is overwhelmed in a symphony of colors and perfumes and the call of the ibis. Upriver from Aswan, the waters of the first dam, built by the British, submerged it 10 months out of the year, and the high dam condemned it forever. The Temple of Philae, one of the most admirable monument groupings to be found anywhere. 8 years of work under the aegis of UNESCO were needed to move stone by stone the Pearl of Egypt to Ajilka Island, 300 meters from its original site. The temple at Philae was begun by the pharaohs and completed by the Romans. It was dedicated to Isis, the universal mother, the most popular goddess in all Egyptian mythology, and it welcomed pilgrims right up to the 5th century. Among the columns and bas-relief can be found a reproduction of the Rosetta Stone text, inscribed on a tablet that made it possible to decipher hieroglyphics. Without the help of UNESCO, Lake Nasser, created by the high dam, would never have engulfed another witness to the grandeur of ancient Egypt, Abu Simbel. The temples to Ramesses II and his wife, Nefertari, were cut into 1,000 blocks, some of which weighed 30 tons, before being reconstructed 64 meters higher in precisely the same relative position they had had. The time had to come when these giants faced certain obliteration before the world would pay homage to this bastion of the pharaoh's civilization.